and welcome to another episode of the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we get together to talk all things estate agency. My name is David Warburton. As ever, I'm joined by my colleagues, Ian Storey and James Kendall. Lads, how has your week been? Let's go to you, JK.
We've had a really good week actually in the office. Quite a few sales. I was just saying off air, 6 sales this week. What's interesting is our average asking price achieved in the last week. That's 102%. Average price varies all the way from sort of 500 up to 800-ish. So real good kind of mid-market stuff. I think a lot of that started to move now. Obviously, we're waiting to hear today what's going to happen with the base rate. There's a lot of noise in the news about whether it's going to stay. A lot of people seem to think it's going to stay where it was now. There is still a chance it could be cut. So who knows with the changes in the MPC. But yeah, six sales. Hoping that we are going to exchange and complete on a few of the bigger deals in our pipe this week. But yeah, in fairness, in our pipeline here, there's quite a few that are riches sales, where, you know, we talked about it yesterday and we'll get into it shortly, but it's all about getting the prices right and, you know, seeing the motivation of the clients and ultimately getting deals done.
Ian, what about you?
Well, yeah, good week. Obviously, yesterday was our second Complete Agent Mastermind in Manchester, so I'm buzzing after that. But generally, at Stories, you know, things continue in a good way. We've had less agreed sales in the last week, only 2, although we had a very good run up to that. We've had 4 really good listings, ranging from 450 to 1.5, and we have a lot of exchanges and completions happening at the minute. So we've got a very good pipeline, as you know, but it was seeming like nothing was ever completing, whereas we should complete on quite a bit this month, and there's other exchanges happening. There's also quite a few more second viewings, I've noticed. Definitely more. It feels like it's definitely getting better and building, and with these second viewings, hopefully we'll have some more going into the pipe. So no, good. In terms of Stories, a good week, and things are going well, really.
Brilliant. Well, we're the same, lads. I think everything's going really well. I think we booked 11 valuations this week, so it's been strong. Quite a few sales coming in, and I think, you know, a sign of the market at the moment that we've obviously gone through a period where I think it's been tougher. Shall we say? To get deals over the line, it's not. I think we've been putting things on the market and they've not been inundated with lots and lots of interest immediately, like may have would have expected. But just this last sort of 6 to 8 weeks for me feels like there's a lot more positivity. So some of the houses that we've had that maybe have been sticking a little bit, or there has been a lack of activity, all of a sudden out of nowhere, not just getting activity, but selling, going under offer quite quickly. So we've had quite a bit of that. So it's been a really good week on offers and sales, but also valuations booked have been absolutely crazy. Had a really good response to the Not on the Market letter. So the diary is absolutely packed out with valuations. And our average fee as well, just been assessing some stats this week. Our average fee is now up over 14,000, which is, really, really good. Really pleased, because we've been working very, very hard in the background. And to get it there now is lovely. So all good. But as you touched on there, Ian, yesterday was our second mastermind for the Complete Agent. And it was really, really good, really well received. Great to see everybody again. As always, a lot of people facing the same sorts of challenges, and it was just good to get in a room, wasn't it? And unpack everything and help and learn. And I think everybody's gone away buzzing with that. So really, really pleased. And I think on this podcast episode, we were going to look at some of the topics that came up to try and unpack a bit of it and see if we can help other people around the country that listen to this weekly. So, Ian, you've taken some of the topics down, haven't you, that we discussed yesterday? So it was a bit more, I mean, obviously the very first mastermind we had was very structured, because we kind of started off with the mini-series recap for a lot of people, and it was a good way for others to engage as well, rather than just listen like they do on the podcast. Similarly yesterday, but I think it was a bit more, lots of people came with questions this time, didn't they, that they wanted answering for themselves. And as always in a estate agency, I think a lot of people are suffering from the same problems and challenges. So it was good to get that out there. So Ian, what have we got? Let's have a look.
Well, yeah, I've got the list of questions that Holly was writing down on the board yesterday. So the first one that we discussed was the best way to keep in touch with clients who don't want to go on the market yet. So obviously one of the key things that members of the Complete Agent get is our direct mail, which, you know, we have amazing success with, and a lot of members are starting to get the same sort of success. But obviously quite a few people who you go and see aren't necessarily selling straight away. So they are going to be selling in the next couple of years, but they aren't selling yet. And obviously what's very important is that you keep front of mind, isn't it? And that they pick up the phone and call you when they're ready to go on the market. So I think it was Dan who asked, you know, what sort of best ways to keep in touch. And funnily enough, the day before that, I'd sent all of our members a message for them to send out to all of their clients that I'd sent to all of my clients at Stories, which was basically taking the HPI, Rightmove HPI report, breaking it down into a few succinct bullet points, and sending it out to all my clients just to keep them in touch with the market. But I also sent it to all of, I say all, maybe not all, but certainly a lot of key clients who aren't yet on the market, aren't yet signed up, just to keep in touch with them. Because you know, I find myself, or I certainly used to find myself, messaging these people saying, "Hi, how's it going, John?" And you think, I don't really mean, "Hi, how's it going, John?" What I really mean is, "Hi, John, when are you selling your house?" And you need to really be more contextual and give people more information, I think, when you're contacting them.
Yeah.
So that was certainly one way that we're going to start trying to keep in touch with these people more, is by giving them some detailed information about the market rather than just a message asking how they're doing.
Yeah, I think it's one of the, I was about to say one of the worst things you could do, but it's not. Obviously, making a phone call is anytime is great, but it's that classic line, "Hi, John, just looking to check in and see what you're doing." Whereas really you should be leading with something like, "Hi, John, obviously I came to see you last month or 2 months, 3 months ago. Just wanted to give you an update on the market so far, blah, 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 blah." So give them some value. A bit like the not on the market letters that we send. No, we don't literally pitch for the business, do we? It's all subtle content. It's very educational, and there are subtle calls to action there. But it's the same sort of thing. If you're constantly communicating with these people and giving them updates and advice, then they're not going to go anywhere else. And the WhatsApp groups really help with that, Ian. Obviously, you know, when you finished a valuation, regardless of whether they are a client or a signed up client, I think setting up the WhatsApp group and having that interaction with them immediately after the valuation is really important, because like you said, if something does come out, like the house price index report comes out and there's some important information on there, you know, you don't need to just be sharing it with your own clients. To share it with your prospective clients as well will go a long way when it comes to them making decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
Diarise it as well. That's one thing that I've been doing now. And I said yesterday, you know, if you meet someone and they're not ready, and they're not ready to do it for a year or 2 years or whatever, just, you know, make a note of that. And it all starts, I think we said yesterday, from the point of booking the val, finding out their motivation, what are their timescales, you know, asking those questions in the beginning. Is this going to be a valuation that's ready to come on the market? But also, is it, you know, what's going to be the tone of the meeting? Is it going to be, this is just what the market's doing, you know, nice to meet you, blah, 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 blah. Here's what the market's doing. Let's stay in touch. Or is it, we're ready to go on the market? But then also one of the things that came up off the back of that, another question was, one of the members in particular was saying, well, you know, we're getting in the living room, you know, the letters are getting us through the front door, but sometimes we're just not converting.
Yeah.
And one of the real crucial things there was, and a tip I gave away yesterday, was just about asking for the business and what to say. You know, and I won't give that away on the podcast for free, because that's something that we gave away yesterday. But you know, just asking for the business, you know, and some of the scripts and dialogues that we gave our members yesterday, basically to help them ask for the business. Because I said, well, you know, why don't you ask for the business? And ultimately is people don't want rejection. But, you know, you're always in a chance of being rejected. Estate agency, you know, don't be an estate agent if you don't want to be rejected. We all go through it.
Yeah.
And it's just learning, you know, if you ask for the business in the living room and they tell you, well, you know, we you know, we're not sure, gives you an opportunity to tackle that objection kind of head on in the lounge and see if you can win them round. It's a lot more difficult if somebody else has asked for the business, they've said yes, and you're trying to win them round. It's a bit like trying to take, I love analogies. If you're on the dating scene, and you go out on a date with someone and you really like them, but then they've gone out on a date with someone else and they've had the courage to seal the deal. Like, you're on the back foot then. Oh, but I'm a really nice guy. I really liked you. Bringing back old memories.
JK, are you crying? Are you crying? Yeah. Are you okay?
Tell me what sort of value you've had so far for the group, and maybe what value you've had for today as well. So I think I joined the group in February, so 4 months. First batch of letters have just gone out. Endless list of value, which is continuous, if I'm being honest with you. So, and that's across the spectrum. So whether that be, like you say, just a simple, how do we answer the phone? Yeah. To how do we look? To what do we do on the valuation? Yeah. How to, endless, to be honest with you. Right. Plenty of value. I'm impressed.
Bringing back old memories.
JK, are you crying? Are you crying?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
But no, listen, we've all been there in both shoes. But the reality is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I just think, I think one of the things we actually gave away yesterday in that instance was really powerful, and it's definitely going to help with conversions.
Yeah, and I think obviously we do bang on about our letters as well, because it's a big part of lead generation for us. And obviously the keep in touch thing, obviously they're going out all the time, aren't they? Every quarter. So at least every quarter, your target market is going to get a touch point, and it's going to be an extremely valuable and educational touch point. So that even then, the likelihood of them sort of at least not picking up the phone again is slim if they are getting that. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway for people should be, treat the client as if they are instructed straight after the valuation, even if they're not.
Yeah.
Get a WhatsApp.
Yeah, if you're sending WhatsApp group. And if you're sending updates to your clients that are on the market, send the same update. Might need slightly rewording, but send the same update to clients that aren't on the market.
You could, again, a tip you could potentially have, if you've got whiteboards and stuff in the office, maybe have a separate list just for valuations attended, or hot valuations that might be on the market soon, and just regularly review them as if they were normal clients.
Yeah, it's a good point. That I'm going to do that. Actually, we've got a spare whiteboard. I'm going to do that.
There you go.
So one of the other questions from members was around the valuation itself and how to structure it. So what we take with us on the valuation, and we talked quite a lot about that yesterday, didn't we? And we were saying how a lot of the valuation, probably 30% of the work, is done before you get there.
Yeah.
So before you even meet them, in terms of their contact with you, their contact with the company, what they've seen online, and then the preparatory work as well as to what you're taking with you. So we talked again about Dataloft, didn't we, and how we use Dataloft. So maybe you might want to pick up on that, Dave, in terms of what you take, because I know that you're the king of that.
Yeah. So I think you've just made a really strong point there, Ian, and I think you said probably 30%. Did you there? Maybe make decisions before. Or certainly will have looked at you and potentially made decisions before you arrive. I really believe that. There's so many times when I've been out to valuations, and there's a few scenarios. So it may be that they've been out and I am either the only person that's going out because they've seen us online a lot, on social media in particular. They've checked out stuff and they love what we do, and I'm the only agent in the room because we've been sending them content regularly. It may be that I was one of their 3, but they hadn't seen loads of us until I got there and I'd thrown a spanner in the works. But I do feel like a lot of clients already have in their mind a favourite. So they'll have one favourite, and then they will potentially just be inviting another 2, maybe, just for comparison on price and stuff like that. So it's that's when you need a knockout sort of valuation and a proper structure that's going to blow them away. So it really is important that you have a proper structure. And we've talked about in the past about telling stories and getting good at telling stories. So I'll come on to that in just a sec. And I know JK can add a bit of value there for one of his. But for me, obviously, it does start before you've even walked through the front door. What are you taking with you? What are you preparing? What's going to make you stand out and make you different? But more importantly, I think than anything, what's going to help put your client in the best possible position to make a decision. So, the way I structure my valuations is I look at, as everybody knows by now, I'm big into my data. My valuations are very data driven. It's not me valuing your home. It's the market that values your home. And my job here today, Mr. Owner, is to give you as much information as I can so that you can make informed decisions, because I'm not buying your property. You're not buying your property. And we need to make your home appeal to the people that are going to buy your property. But the valuation is the valuation. Let's look at the data and go from there. So my prep starts, as everybody knows, we're big fans of Dataloft. I use Dataloft a lot on my valuation. So I like to look at what the market has been doing in a certain period. And right now, in this moment, I take all the data back to January 2020 so that you can demonstrate what happened during that COVID period. And one of the reasons that that's really, really important, particularly at the moment, is that you've got a lot of stock on the market that is significantly overpriced, and a lot of people are basing their opinions and valuations on outdated data, basically what happened during that COVID period. And the way we articulate this is to say, well, given these light bulb moments again, like during that period when prices were going through the roof, there were hardly any fall through rates, there were hardly any fall through rates. Fall through rates were extremely low, or when properties did fall through, they were reselling very, very quickly. So the majority of stock that you listed sold. And the reason this was happening was because the interest rates were at 0.1%. There was no stamp duty to pay, and it was very easy for people to borrow. And your typical buyer might have been moving from a small terrace property or a semi-detached property to a big detached home, doubling the value of the house, but actually not paying that much more, and sometimes even less on their mortgage because borrowing was so cheap. So now we're in a completely different scenario, and the data that we take with us shows what happened straight after that period. At the end of 2022, all the way through 2023. So we saw that interest rates were rising every single month, and what this did was pull lots and lots of people out of the market. And if you show them the second bit of data, the transaction levels, you can see a direct correlation where the transaction levels plummet. And in most areas where you'll also see on the prices started to decline as well. And then we also take with us a spreadsheet that we put together showing every single house that is sold of their type. We also take all the trends. So that's very important, the Rightmove trends, because Rightmove have got millions of data points. They can see how people are behaving online at that very moment in time. So we take that with us to say there's also the element of the unknown. But what we can see is that since the interest rate dropped, that Rightmove are showing us that activity is up. A lot more people are making estate agency inquiries. We're feeling it too. So demonstrating all this. So structuring the valuation with all these data points and preparation so that your client can make an informed decision. They're not just reliant on your opinion. So structuring it in that way in terms of like what you're actually taking with you, I find is extremely important. And what it does by doing this is takes a lot of the emphasis of the appointment from valuation onto what you can do to help them to put together a knockout marketing campaign to find the right type of buyer that will buy their home. Because I think I talked about it yesterday, that we've all been there where if you value the home personally and your client doesn't necessarily agree with you, you might be on a losing battle. You're kind of almost arguing, trying to justify the valuation, and you can spend a lot of time. And in many cases, you'll lose the client before you've had a chance to present your proposition and show them how good you are. If you structure your valuation in a way whereby you're showing them how much their property might be worth based on factual data, and take the conversation away from you valuing the home. So it's basically you saying, look, you might not agree with what I've got to say today, but ultimately we can't argue with the facts. This is what houses are selling for, £1 per square foot, but somebody might agree with what you're saying. It's a very subjective thing. It's very easy to get the vendor to understand that, and you can get into a conversation about where you pitch it. And then, of course, you move on to your knockout proposition, which I'll not go through in total. I've got a way that I structure my valuation and the way I do it, and it works very, very well for me. But one thing that I learned very early on was to get good at storytelling and having a way of getting across how I feel I can help them and how I've helped someone else in the same way who's similar to them will probably work for them. So, JK, I'm going to just pass over to you because I know you articulate this very well. Because you've had a good story in the past as well that I think you probably use on every valuation, and you use it with your brochure. And I think the brochures, by the way, are extremely powerful. But again, I'll not go into it right now. I think it's something you can talk about.
Yeah, I mean, just on quickly on the vals. One of the powerful bits I do as well, I think we missed out, is printing off the Zoopla estimate and the Rightmove estimate as well. And I think there's a lot of people that come unstuck against Zoopla estimates sometimes, where a Zoopla estimate says the house is worth 800,000 when realistically it's worth 6. It's just reframing that and saying to people, well, look, would you believe the estimate if it was 500,000? And the answer is no, they wouldn't. It's that I can't remember the actual name of it, but it's that, what do you call it? Something bias, isn't it? They've got that personal bias attached to it because that number is favourable to them and their house, so they believe it because they want to believe it, rather than actually whether it being factual or not. But just moving on to the brochure part. The brochure part for the kind of mid to high end stuff is really powerful because it's all about storytelling and articulating the story, and having the brochures in your bag. So when you deliver the brochures across the table, people can feel your marketing. It's not just saying we do this, we do that. They're actually getting to touch and feel and see what you actually do as part of it. We talked about briefly, making people watch the video, or not making them watch it, but showing people the videos on an iPad, so they can get an idea of what it is that you're doing and what you offer. But just on the brochures, talking people through the story of the house, and I use a couple of different brochures for a couple of different stories, depending on the house that I'm going to. If I'm going to an £800,000 house, then I'll take a brochure of a similar value or slightly more. And I'll just say, in recent times, we sold this house in particular here. We got £400,000 over the next lowest valuation. This is what we did. This is the story. This is how it all fit together. There's a Google review. This is the client's name. And also, I've got really good relationship with pretty much all of my past clients. 99.9% of my past clients, all super relationships with. In that I can actually give them their number, and they'll speak to people and tell them about their experience. And, there's not many other people that can sit in the living room and say, or in the dining room, wherever you are, and say, look, this is what happened on this one. By the way, if you want to ring the client and speak to them about their experience, this is what you can do. Because very, very few agents will want to do that because, it's very much, let's get it on Rightmove, let's hope it sells, and let's see what happens. But I just think that's really powerful, how you can articulate the story of, what they were doing, how it worked, any challenges, how you overcame it, and how it all worked in the end. And I think brochure telling is a really good part of it.
Brochure telling? Yeah,
I mean, you couldn't have said any of that better, really. It's about relationship building, isn't it, as much as it is about the house. So I'm just conscious of time, and I want to get a few more of these questions. So we did have a couple of other questions about generating valuations, apart from the letters and word of mouth. We can probably come on to that. We've definitely already discussed that before. But one thing that was interesting that we were discussing in detail, there's two extra things, really. One was team structure, and one was about brand stretch or brand split. So obviously, Storey is a brand stretch, and you two basically are both brand split, and there's a few agents who are on both sort of sides of the fence, as it were. So we discussed that in detail as well, didn't we? And maybe JK, you could pick up on brand split. I know Dave's already done it, but you're about to do it. Do you want to talk us through the reasons for that?
Yeah, I think, we've got a really good community brand. I think, as I said yesterday, and it's no secret, I set up the business from a bedroom as a one-man band. We were doing 999, no sale, no fee. We were very much kind of selling anything and everything from, 100 grand flats to, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom terraced houses. And, over the years, we're doing a really good job for people. We've built a really good, and especially in lockdown, when we did like the printing for the kids and we were delivering supplies, computers for kids, all that sort of good community work we've done over the last 8 to 9 years. I mean, I bought a load of books for a school in one of the villages near us about 8 years ago, and people are still bringing it up now. Like, I went to a val the other week, and then, oh yeah, well, you brought the books for the lower school, and the lower school needed books. I mean, it was it was £100 like 8 years ago. It wasn't anything really, but I think we've got a really good community focused core business that does really well between up to kind of 400 or 500. That it would be a shame to just drop that and walk away from it, because it just turns over so much money. And then what I'm really passionate about personally is that kind of mid to high end of the market, and that's really where I thrive. And that's the brand split will have no compromises. It will be high fee, upfront marketing fees on everything, the twilights, the brochures. The whole thing is a consistent package. Whereas having the lower end brand, and a lot of this has come from Dave, really, to be honest. His experiences, and how things work on Burton James and We Locate, in that if you get a house that is a higher value but it doesn't fit the brand, you can put them down onto the other brand. But also equally, if you want to take on a 450 grand house that doesn't fit the brand, and that they won't quite pay 2%, you've got the flexibility on that lower end brand where you can go, well, look, we can't give you this for that fee, but for 1.5%, we can give you this offering. And we're still, a lot of the elements are the same. You're still going to get professional photography, you're still going to get a video, you're still going to get a great all-round package, but it's a watered down version of the higher end brand. And I think it just gives you so much flexibility. If you've got a really good core brand, but then you want to move into mid to high end, I just think the brand split. How many brands do it around the world? In and out of a estate agency, there's so many different brands, and there's brands that you wouldn't realise that are luxury brands of other brands. You Joe Blogs on the street. Like, what's the Japanese one? Is it like Honda and Acura or Genesis or whatever it is? What one does low end cars, and the other, Fiat and Ferrari, another classic example. Exactly the same company. Volkswagen Group. You've got Seat, you've got Skoda, and then you've got Audi, Porsche, Lamborghini, Bentley. They're all made in the same factory, but they're all different propositions. So, estate agency, isn't a unique beast on its own like that. It's a thing. People will pay for what is perceived to be quality, and it just allows you, by splitting the brand, because you can't sell a Fiat and a Ferrari in the same showroom. That's the reality. And I think that's why you have the Ferrari dealership that does the things the Ferrari way, and you have the Fiat dealership that does things the Fiat way. And I just think, for me, it makes total sense to have why would I walk away from a really good business that generates between 400 and 500 grand a year just to concentrate on a high end brand when you can have both?
Yeah, totally agree, mate. I think you've nailed it there. Really, it is something that I felt just that you couldn't mix the two, and it's the perception, and it does allow you to have a bit of a split. It's a good way to get a bit of everything and complete it, but at the same time keep it completely separately, and keep that perception separate as well. Because you will, we talked yesterday, I won't go into them now, but I gave loads of examples from my side where there is that, I think, perception from within the estate agency might be, do you not sometimes get too much of a crossover, and how much is the difference in the two different offerings? But it's just worked extremely well for me. And what you'll tend to find is that the majority of people get where they sit, and it's just about demonstrating the type of demographic that you have for their type of home. So that's another important factor of it, and it does work very, very well, I feel. And certainly, if you are in a position now where you've got a mid-range brand as it is, or lower to mid-range brand, then having a completely separate one for me is a no-brainer. If depending on how it looks as it is already, but if the name's not quite right and it doesn't look that great now, it's easier to start separately.
Yeah, I mean, just to finalise on that point, but you can do brand stretch. I've done it. Depends. I do think it depends on your area as well. So our area, our mid-range houses around us are 500 grand. 400,000-500,000. So if you've got a lot of 400,000-500,000 pound properties that are easy to sell, I say easy, which is like where we are, then I think you can do brand stretch easier, because you can have a company that does 400 to 1.5 million quite easily. If you're in an area where you've not got as much of that stock, then I think brand stretch is probably more applicable. And it also depends on when you're starting. If you're starting from scratch, I think you can do brand stretch easier. If you've already got a brand that does mid-lower end, it's then hard to turn it round, isn't it? And also sell the higher end stuff, which is where brand split comes in. So I think it depends on those two things as well. Then the only other thing just to touch on before we left was team structure. A couple of questions were around viewings. We had one member who is very, very busy, and she part of the reason she's very, very busy is because she's still doing all the viewings herself, or her and her team are, and it's not allowing her to free up and get out listing and selling. So one thing that we've implemented really well at Stories is having viewing specialists. Having said that, on the back of that, another member who was there, who's a very successful higher end agent in the Northwest, was saying that he loves doing his own viewings because he gets valuations off the back of them. And I do understand that point, but I do think to grow a company to any scale, you can't be doing the viewings yourself. And although I do enjoy doing higher end viewings when they've got a house to sell, because you can convert them better than anyone on the planet, but to grow it to any scale, you need people doing the viewings. Viewing specialists work really well for us. They're self-employed contractors. We pay ours minimum wage. They're not doing it for the money. That's the important thing. They're doing it because most of ours are semi-retired professionals who've sold a business or who've got a fat pension from a company they've worked for 40 years. And they're really nice, presentable, professional, well-mannered, well-connected people locally. And they're brilliant at doing viewings. They are 0 hours contracts, so they only do viewings when we need them, and we've currently got 6 that cover 7 days a week. And, you get the odd problem here and there, but I think you get the odd problem here and there with employed people as well. So there's no perfect way. But for us, it's enabled us to grow. We've now got 58 properties in the pipeline from one office. And it's really enabled us to grow because we can cover viewing 7 days a week. So that was a key thing that I picked up on yesterday on team structure.
We spoke to people separately as well. Obviously we've got the group activity going on, but of course we have breakout, and you end up speaking to people individually, which is always really nice. And that's one thing that kept coming up, actually. 2 or 3 people I spoke to about sort of structure and having that fear of letting go of certain parts of the business, I think. And it is difficult, even when I used to work in corporate, when I first took on a valuer, having done all the valuations myself, I was thinking, I don't really want to let go of that. But then once you've trained someone up and they're the right person, it's the best thing you'll do. And I think for people who are struggling to let go of certain things like viewings, and I do understand the argument that, you get a lot of business from it. The issue is, I think you've got to get into it. It's a bit like getting into the why again. What's the problem? What is the problem that it's causing? Not the issue at hand necessarily. What is the problem it's causing? 9 times out of 10 with a business owner, it is, I have no freedom, and I can't take. One of the people was saying to me, I can't take holidays. I'm working 6 days out of 7, long hours, I'm taking it home with me. And listen, I know exactly how that feels, but until you actually make that change, nothing else will change. So I think to me, the viewing representative, the viewing specialist, whatever you want to call them, seems like the obvious thing. But I would caveat it and say it's an extremely important appointment. Obviously, Ian's just mentioned there, a lot they're not there for the money, the ones that are working for him. They're a certain type of person. The last thing you want is what I call a door opener. You hear it from a lot of your clients, and they'll say, that estate agent is useless. We went and did a viewing and she didn't know anything. And it's not that the estate agent necessarily is useless. It's just that the person that they've put in one of the most important positions in the company, in my opinion, because it's the first impression that someone will have of your company, the person that they've put there either doesn't care enough, or they've not prepared them enough and taught them how to do a proper structured viewing. So I would say just get the right person in and show them what a good viewing looks like. Give them the tools that they need to make sure that viewing experience is a really great one for the person viewing it. Because even if that person has a house to sell, and your worry is that I'm the best person in the office at converting all these viewings into valuations, if someone is armed with the right information, it's the experience that they give them and that feeling that that particular viewer gets when they walk away that will leave the longest lasting impression, because they will say, I want that person showing people around my house as well. So as long as they know what they're doing and how to articulate the information that they've got for that property and do a good job showing them around the home, you'll be absolutely fine. And they can also pitch for you as well. Do you want a viewing? Do you want a copy of our 16-step selling plan? Here, take that away, have a look at it. Give them a follow-up call on the Monday to say, oh, how did you get on with John on Monday? Did you on Saturday? Did you enjoy the viewing? Was everything okay? You could be the one that makes the follow-up. But I think definitely that is probably the first area I think that you could easily start to not so much outsource but recruit for, and it will be a big weight off your shoulders. And then the side thing with that is, if you are freeing yourself up 3-4 hours a week from viewings, what could you be doing in that 3 or 4 hours? How much more business could you generate in that 3 or 4 hours? How many more letters could you prepare or get out? How many more doors could you go and knock on? How many more calls could you make in that 3 or 4 hours while somebody else is doing the viewings for you? It's just these economies of scale. You've got to think where your time is best served, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's about, Dave. It's the, there's a saying, isn't there, about low dollar tasks, and certain things you should not be doing. Really all you should be doing is listing, selling. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's listing, selling, and obviously running the company. You need to make sure the team are doing what they should be doing, but ultimately bringing the business in, filling the top of the funnel.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's one final thing to wrap up, David, that you wanted to discuss was around sticky stock.
Yeah, I think it's just it's a common thing, and look, you can follow the trail back. So if the valuation process wasn't great, and then your follow up wasn't great, and then the proposal that you put together wasn't amazing, and you didn't put in there any detail about what would happen if the house doesn't sell, it's always going to be a more difficult conversation further down the line when you need to get a tactical reduction. And when I say a tactical reduction, I mean a price realignment to get it into a bracket whereby it's probably going to attract a bit more interest. But again, we have lots of people who are telling us that they've got stock that is sticking and they're not getting enough traction on. And then they're having difficult conversations further down the line with homeowners. So it's easy for us to say, well, this is how you should value it, this is what you should put in the proposal, this is how you should present it. But for people that haven't done that yet and maybe need to go back to the drawing board on the valuation side of it, setting that structure up so that they know, there'll be people there with sticky stock right now where they may have gone in and said, I think your house is worth 600,000, and actually it's not selling. We're further down the line, months down the line, and it probably needs to be 550. So how do people have those conversations? And we talked about getting into the why of the clients again. It's a big thing. I used a good example of one of my clients who is he'd been on the market with two other agents at 625, I think, and 650, maybe 600, and had absolutely no traction whatsoever. And then when I went out to see him, the truth is the house is probably worth more like 550, if that. He's just wasted so much time. But one of the big things for him is that he needs to get to Australia. His wife is already over there. He's living alone at the moment with his 4-year-old daughter, and they need to get to Australia too. So it's a very, very big thing for them, and it's quite a stressful time for them as well. And they've just wasted probably the best part of 12 months. And he's still, the agents that he was on with weren't able to articulate the data, and they've not been telling him what the market's doing. And he's just been sat there waiting and waiting and waiting. So to understand what he was trying to achieve, and then give him some really honest advice about his price, and then give him some other options. So, his options are, I think you need to go straight on the market at 550. You need to be moved by October. That's kind of around his bottom line. And if it doesn't sell, he needs another option, which will be to go down the rental route. There's others where I've had them where they're just overpriced, and they're asking for too much money. And my view is and always has been that a vendor doesn't know what they'll accept until they get a real offer, until the actual offer is there to consider. And we talked a little bit about my valuation style, which is quite casual. I like to be very honest and upfront with everybody and just tell them as it is. And I think one of the things that I do is give hypothetical scenarios. And I also try, and I was saying, I feel like an estate agency hack is to learn how to articulate a proper offers over campaign. And I often say to people, once you get the hypothetical scenario, and I know JK, you articulate this quite well, but we'll come on to you in a second. But hypothetically speaking, Mr. Vendor, if I don't, you're on at 550. If somebody came in tomorrow and offered you 500, are you taking it? No. 510, no. 520, yeah, I might accept that. Right. This is what I think we need to do. And then it's a case of, I need to take you outside of your comfort zone a little bit and drop the price below what is perceived to be market value. You won't feel comfortable about that, I get it. But on the flip side, that looks like a really great deal to buyers. And buyers pay more in competition. So if we can get more people through your door, price to entice, get more people through your door, then the likelihood is we'll have more competition amongst buyers and we'll be able to get them up to a certain number. But on the flip side, Mr. Vendor, if we put it on an offers over 500 as this price realignment, and it's still not getting loads of interest and you're not getting offers, what does that tell you? And if you still don't get the answer that you want, you have to explain to them, well, it was probably never worth 550,000 in the first place, and we're wasting time. So my plan for you is to get people in, to give you a decision to make. And if we get to a certain point and you're not getting offers where you want to be, then fair enough, that's fine. You just say no. But I feel like following this strategy is your best chance to get a sale, and I really want to try it. How do you feel about that? And I think if you can master that, a proper offers over strategy, because sticking offers over on an asking price is not a good idea if that's where you think the value sits or where the data suggests the value sits. Offers over works best if you take the client outside of their comfort zone and put a price on that is perceived to be below market value.
Just talking about our sales this week, we've done 6, we're about to do 7. And what's interesting is that 3 of them are all prices that have been realigned. One in particular was on 900. And I had this conversation with a client yesterday, actually. I was giving him an update and we were just talking about what we do moving forward. The house that Rich sold, it was on at 900. And we thought it was the top end, but that's what the client wanted to put it on at. We did say let's top end. The ideal scenario is offers over 850. Anyway, cut a long story short, didn't really go anywhere at 9. Changed it to 850, offers over, and then we wrapped it up yesterday at 9. So, it's all about that. There are 2 buyers that wanted it, competing, and then, happy days. Another one we've just sold this month. Again, it's all around that mid-range, interesting enough, 800k mark. On the market with another agent, we valued it originally, offers over 850. Probably would have sold within and around that if they'd have taken our advice in the first place. Went on with another agent at 900. Awful marketing. Agent dropped the price to 875. Didn't go anywhere. Agent dropped the price to 850. We kept in touch. We took over. We tried 850 at that point. It had already been cooked. Said, look, the market's moved. What does this look like if you have to take 800 grand? And they said, we don't know if we could really move for 800. And I said, well, what's the reason behind this move? And there were some quite personal circumstances behind the move. And I said, well, the reality is the house needs to be sold. One of you is going to buy on. So the reality is, what you buy for and what you sell for is going to be partially relative. And you're also paying a higher interest mortgage. Your options are, in 6 months' time, you're going to have to remortgage and go into a much higher rate mortgage for both of your mortgages tied together. So should we just rip the Band-Aid off now and do offers over 8? Let's sell. We've just wrapped it up for 805, and everyone's moving forward. Great fee. But again, it's just having these courageous conversations with people, but they're a lot easier to have if you frame the valuation, as Dave says, right in the beginning. It's not our valuation. If it's your valuation against their valuation and it doesn't sell, you're the one that's in the wrong and it's your fault. However, if it's you and your client versus the market, and it's about, beating the market and getting the market to buy your house. I said in the room yesterday, everyone in the room does really good marketing. So it's going to be the market, not the marketing. So we need to make sure we find the right price and that buyers will come through the door to buy your house. But it's just, again, it comes back to that why right at the beginning. Why are they selling? Are they motivated? Do they need to sell? What is their reason for doing this whole process? And I think once you drill down to that, you can help your clients because, as you say, Dave, people don't know what they're going to accept until they get an offer. They like the idea of getting 900, but the reality is if the house is only worth 820, they then have to realign their expectations and their life plans based on what's realistic, not on what would be nice. So there's quite a few in our pipeline that we've added. Again, one more just really quickly was on at 895 randomly with another agent, awful price. They really want to move. They're really motivated to move. Didn't go anywhere. Rich brought it on the market, a similar price to the other agent had, and said, look, if it doesn't work, we're going to need to change the price because the market doesn't agree with the price we're up at. Had a real tough conversation with him, changed it to offers over 8 and just sold it at 810. They're over the moon because they're now moving, they're in the market. And what is the objective? I think, as I said earlier and I said yesterday, is your objective to just squeeze every single pound out of it? Because if it is, and you can afford to wait, and if we're in a rising market, then absolutely, I'll back you all the way, and we'll wait as long as we wait. But unfortunately, in a more turbulent market, you need to adjust to the conditions. And if the motivation is to move, then this is what we need to do to get you moved. So this is where we change the price, get people round. I'll negotiate the best possible price for you because that's my job and that's my strength. And then what we'll equally do once we've got you sold is help you buy the next house for as little as possible as well. So I just think, again, what's the goal? Is it to squeeze every last pound out of it? Of course, you want to get your client the top price, but ultimately that top price is dictated by who's in the market and what they're prepared to pay.
Yeah, it's great. I think some really good points there. Really, really good points. So for me on that, summarise, it's like 4 things. Use the hypothetical scenarios. Find out the why of the client. Understand that. You're always going to get some clients who will say, it's 800 or nothing, Dave. And in which case, if you just know it's not going to sell, you might have a decision to make as to whether you carry on with that client. There's no harm in cutting some loose if it's become dead wood. But ultimately, understand their why. Get the hypothetical scenarios. If I was to get you an offer of X, are you accepting it? And find out that level. You've then got to articulate why you want to take them below market value. So you've got to get good at being able to articulate why you want them on at a market price below what is perceived to be market value. And it's about creating competition amongst buyers to drive the price up. It'd be really wise to have a story as an example. So if you've got a test case where you've done it before successfully, I actually use one that I used years and years and years ago, and the price will tell you how long ago it was. But I had a 2-bed terrace, and it just also shows that it stands the test of time. It still works in all markets. I had a house years and years ago, £100,000, 2-bed terrace. She could not sell it. She was a desperate seller and came to me after 6 weeks and no viewing, saying, Dave, how do we get this sold? I'm desperate. I need to get it gone. She couldn't get a viewing. And I said, look, what's your bottom line? She said, it's 93. If I can sell it for 93, we're done. I can go. I said, right, you need to get offers over 90. It'll attract competition, etc., etc., etc. We did it, offers over 90. She had a raft of viewings. The house sold for 98,000. She couldn't get a viewing at 100 and sold it for 98 by using an offers over 90 strategy. So having a story like that will enable you to get the point across a lot easier. And I think the final thing on that is just having a caveat, of course. Look, there's no guarantees here. The market is the market. I'm not buying it, etc. But if it isn't selling at the point where we've done the reduction, what does that tell you, John? Maybe it's not quite right. But yeah, getting good at that, I think, will stand you in good stead. And I think we're moving into a market now where you should, if you've not already, you should be contacting all your stock and priming them with these strategies, because this next, this autumn period, it's looking like it's going to be a good one. As JK mentioned earlier on, we're waiting for the Bank of England to announce their status, which is likely to be a hold. But even so, there's already more buoyancy in the market and there's probably more to come. So get good at that.
Cool. Right. Well, it's been a pleasure, lads. Thanks everyone for watching or listening, even rather, this week. And we will see you next week.
Been a pleasure. Cheers, fellas. Thanks for listening, guys.
See you soon. Bye.